The time has finally come. Welcome to my Spider-Man No Way Home spoiler review, which is just the beginning of my spoiler coverage. Plenty of videos coming, so be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any of this Spidey goodness. So much for us to discuss. And I think where I want to start is, it was hard to figure out an entry point because there's just so much going on in this movie. But I was like, and I think it's hard. It's a Spider-Man movie. Not just because it has the 3 Spider-Men in it, which we can finally openly talk about. But Marvel and Sony took 2 classic Spider-Man incidents from the comics, his identity reveal and having his relationship with MJ erased, and they just took them in the most abstract of senses. And also those aren't even particularly good stories in my opinion, so there's no reason for you to go read them. But they are famous points in Spider-Man comic history. But they use these stories, or the basic elements of these stories, to not only do a soft reboot on Tom Holland's Spidey, this is exciting, but to finally get him out from under not just Iron Man's shadow, but from underneath the shadow of the entire MCU. I know! Is Tom Holland's Peter Parker really ready to fly solo without any MCU training wheels? I think he is! Evidenced by the fact that the MCU and multiverse parts of No Way Home are my least favorite parts of the movie. I think that this was really Spidey, and that was so cool. The beginning and the end of No Way Home truly feel like a Spider-Man story as much as the first 2 Sam Raimi movies, and that's pretty darn cool. John Watts is moving on to Fantastic Four, and after having seen this movie, I totally understand why he got that gig. Try harder, Peyton Reed. I heard Quantumania might be a tad boring yet again from some sources, but anyway, I kind of would like John Watts to stick with this, quite frankly. But I don't know. Maybe he doesn't want to make Spider-Man movies for the rest of his life. Why not? Tom Holland wants to star in them. All right, so anyway, just pay them what they're worth. So we'll talk about what's next for Tom Holland's Peter Parker in another video, which I'm going to do coupled with the Venom end credit scene, because that's, of course, what's coming up. Symbiote time, baby! And a couple of other really interesting things, as Tom Holland truly becomes the Peter Parker of legend. It's a formula that's successful for a reason. Although Tom Holland's Spider-Man is plenty popular, he's got so many stands, it's impressive. But as we focus here on the actual movie itself, let's start with the other 2 Peter Parkers in the room, Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire. It was indeed thrilling to see them literally run into the film as if called in from off stage, and look who's here, everybody, and they were like, yeah, and the audience was like, woo! That was fun, and both Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire still look great in their Spidey suits. They looked fantastic. Fantastic! Seeing the 3 Spideys together certainly was a thrill and made for some great shots. Some of my favorites, from the 2 Peter Parkers silhouetted at the top of the school, Batman style. I thought that was a really nice shot when Zendaya was like, we have some other people for you. And Peter was like, through his tear-stained eyes, he's like, who is it? And you're like, oh, they're sticking to the wall. That was fun. And then the 3 of them working together in the lab and in the field, that was cool to see. I'll never forget seeing Andrew Garfield crack Tobey Maguire's back. That's silly and fun. And of course, that hug goodbye. For some of us, it's interesting to me. If you're a hardcore Spider-Man fan, I think they played a lot of the right notes here, that you're going to be like, aw. But if you're kind of a Batman, kind of someone who sides more with the villains, it's not going to quite, work as well. But I thought, so I was I think they could have done a better job. And I'm going to talk just a little bit about what I think that was missing. But I think with that hug, and a lot what they were trying to show here, is that it seems throughout the multiverse, one constant is that it ain't easy being Peter Parker. And, I think that's what makes the character so relatable to a lot of fans. It's interesting who people identify with. Do you identify with Peter Parker? Do you identify with Bruce Wayne? Who do you gravitate towards? Wonder Woman? Diana? It's really interesting stuff. All right, so anyway, but as I said in my non-spoiler review, to me, neither Andrew Garfield or Tobey Maguire acted like they did in their respective films. I rewatched Spider-Man 1 and 2 to get ready for this movie specifically. I watched Spider-Man 2 twice, in fact. And, Alfred Molina understood the assignment. He octopus walked right into this movie from the last one. And in those two movies, Tobey Maguire had a very specific take on Peter Parker that was very successful, and that included an extremely unique speech pattern that I really missed. I mean, I get that his Peter Parker matured, but people don't change that much. I mean, it might have changed a bit, but he just seemed like a totally different person to me. It seemed more like Tobey Maguire than it did Tobey Maguire's Peter Parker. And that's who I wanted to see. I didn't want to see Tobey Maguire. I wanted to see his Peter Parker. Same with Andrew Garfield, who to me seemed like he didn't yet quite turn off his Tick Tick Boom vibe. He seemed more like a musical theater guy in this movie than a scientist. He had that like theatrical, dramatic tone to his voice, you know? He was super excited about everything like musical theater people. He was very musical theater-y, which was funny. And for those of you who like musical theater, you were like, I like him even better. But to me, he wasn't the same character, which frustrated me. Although, I have to give him major props for the moment when he caught MJ and he was reminded of Gwen and he was like, are you okay? And she was like, yeah. And the look on Andrew Garfield's face, he nailed that. The feels, that was incredible. That was incredible. That's more of what I was kind of looking for here. Part of the fun of the Spider-Verse is to see how each Spidey is different through different circumstances, right? And so I thought there was a real missed opportunity to flesh out these Spider-Men, so much so that I feel like Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield were like, this is it, we're not coming back after this. So they were like, we don't want to tease a bigger life for either character because fans will just be disappointed when they don't get to see it. And I'm like, I would have taken the tease. At least we would know it existed out there somewhere. Like, for instance, there was a rumor going around that Tobey Maguire's character would have a daughter, Mayday Parker, which of course is the Spider-Girl or woman from an alternate universe in the comics. Very popular character. You know, cult popular, but popular. Now that, of course, didn't come to fruition, but it was a good idea. It should have. It was a very good idea. I think it would have been touching to tell Tom Holland's Peter, you know, when he was so sad that his May had just been killed, that May in a way lived on through Tobey Maguire's daughter. I thought that was nice to make it, again, help make it feel like it was bigger than them. And then also, you know, Andrew Garfield gave him the perfect opportunity when he just asked how his life was. You know, I thought I would have, Tobey Maguire's Peter Parker played it very close to the vest, and as you can see how bad it was having Tom Holland's identity revealed, you can see why, but he was amongst other Peter Parkers. I would have liked some details. Like, that's it? Really? That's it? Are you kidding me? We've waited like over a decade or almost 20 years. What happened to you crazy kids? And it's too bad Kirsten Dunst couldn't show up, and Emma Stone was also supposed to come back, but, you know, COVID. I think COVID had a bit of an effect on this film, as I'll talk about in another section. But anyway, Andrew Garfield, by the way, also said after Gwen Stacy was killed, he stopped pulling his punches. And he did not at all seem like someone who'd stopped pulling his punches. He seemed like, in fact, he might have been landing, you know, even softer punches because he was such a swell guy, you know, and he was like, I feel lame next to you guys. You guys are all so awesome. And they were like, no, you're great. You're great. I mean, that was funny. I thought all the jokes between the three Spideys were really good. But it just seemed more like a great SNL sketch, like a really good SNL sketch. A lot of you hate SNL. A lot of you felt that was a negative when I described it that way. There have been some great SNL sketches. Come on. And so that really reminded me more of that than these three characters from the movies actually getting together. Also, while Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire are both older than Tom Holland and further along, therefore, in their Spidey lives, it was surprising to me that they seemed to have the same level of experience. Like, wouldn't Tobey Maguire's Peter Parker be Spider-Man 1 and be the one who led them, right? Like, it didn't make any sense to me that, you know, I guess because it was his movie, but I mean, come on, respect Tobey Maguire. He was the first Spider-Man. He's been around the longest. He should have been Spider-Man 1 and he should have been calling the shots more because he had more experience. And also, although, speaking of experience, how many times are these guys going to let villains get the better of them? Like when Tobey Maguire got stabbed by Green Goblin, I kind of rolled my eyes. And it's fine because he was fine. He was totally fine. He's been stabbed before. Ha, ha, ha. And I'm like, wow, Green Goblin must be losing his touch. The sound effects guy didn't know he'd been stabbed before because that sounded like a serious stab. But he was like, oh, no, it's a paper cut. It's a paper cut. It was like, it sounded really bad. It sounded very gushy. But Green Goblin, he got Aunt May all right. And I have mixed feelings again about this scene. We're going to talk about what I loved in just a moment. I just want to talk about these few things. And again, I didn't dislike anything. I just was like, it could have been better. But again, I really appreciated here depicting Walking Dead syndrome. Very, very sad, very much how it happens in real life. Aunt May had no idea that she was dying. And at first, neither did Peter. That was really incredible. And I don't think May ever knew. She just was getting more and more tired. She just wanted to rest. That was sad. Marissa Tomei, Oscar-winning actress, did a great job. But I didn't see the need to kill her. There's a part of me that feels she might have been fridged, to be honest with you. I mean, I would have felt that Gwen Stacy was fridged when Andrew Garfield was like, oh, look, I saved another woman. Everything's fine. But the look on his face made that okay. But I don't know. I mean, all it seemed to do was to make it really clear, to underline to Tom Holland's Peter Parker that doing the right thing is more important than anything, even your own life and the lives of your loved ones. And I don't agree with that at all. But I think that's a message, again, that will really speak to Spidey fans. I'm a Batman fan, so as you can guess, I refuse to take anything that's bad, and I will never let anything go. So, imagine me watching this movie as if Batman bought a ticket and how he would take everything. All right, so anyway. I'm also not really into curing villains, rehabilitating them maybe, but for example, and that's from like a real world perspective, like from a story perspective, I think it's a horrible idea. For example, I thought taking away Jamie Foxx's Electro powers was kind of mean. Like, can't they just make him be a good guy? But that was like, I don't know why I would have taken that thing off my chest too, that was slowly taking his powers away. I felt kind of bad for him. I also think it kind of takes away from the power of these villains that you just boil them down to all scientists who just had an accident. I guess if the Spideys really want to help the world, they should advocate for lab safety. When Captain America has that video that they played in a previous Spider-Man movie at the gym, maybe Spider-Man should be like, I don't want to fight you in the near future. You might not make it out of that battle alive. Wear your goggles. It's hilarious. It just made it all seem very Scooby-Doo, which of course is a line from the actual movie. And also, are all the other superheroes big jerks for not trying to cure their villains? At the next Avengers meeting, they're going to be like, what are you doing? Thank God they don't remember who Peter Parker is, because they'd be like, what are you trying to do to our images? It's a slippery slope. Next time we see a hero just punch a villain, are we going to be like, Peter Parker, save them? All right, so anyway. Also, speaking of Aunt May's death, I was surprised that this Peter hadn't heard the great power, with great power comes great responsibility line yet. When his Uncle Ben died, did he just die? That's really weird. All right, so, and speaking of alternate Spider-Man, I loved, and my theater loved, when Miles got a semi-shout-out from Electro, when he saw Andrew Garfield's face and he said, I just figured you'd be black, because, you come from Queens and you help the disadvantaged. I just thought it was, such a great moment. Jamie Foxx, I'm sure Jamie Foxx loved getting to do that too. And my audience just erupted in applause. And as a Miles Morales fan from day one, who has seen the character have difficulties when he started out, which was really unfortunate, it made me so happy that he is now beloved. I can't wait for him to eventually come into live action. He's coming. It could be like soon. It could be maybe in the next chapter for this Tom Holland Spider-Man. It might be after his animated movies end, but he's coming. He's coming someday. And whatever actor gets that role, it's going to be Tom Holland broke into tears at the end of the premiere because he's Spider-Man. He was the star of such an incredible movie in many ways. I still think it's really fantastic. I had a great time, even though I think it has problems, but it's going to be that way for an actor, a black Hispanic actor as well. And they better cast it right or the internet's going to get furious. All right, so if Electro, by the way, didn't know his Spider-Man was Peter Parker, then how the heck did he get pulled into this universe? That doesn't make any sense. And then why would all the Peter Parkers get pulled through? Because they knew that they were Spider-Man? Right? And Venom, he had no idea who Spider-Man was. It didn't make any sense. And then also, why were Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire just wandering around this new universe? They're both experienced superheroes. They should have been able to both quickly find fellow heroes and familiar foes. The movie is very sloppy in many regards. So those are my main problems with the movie, along with it being a bit too jokey and talky. But again, I think that's partially due to COVID, which has resulted in a lot of small groups having conversations in small rooms. If you take a look at Succession Season 3, so good. a lot of that, particularly towards the beginning of the season, has that same issue where the scenes are not as dynamic as you would want because they were restricted in who could be in a scene and where they could film it. So you have to realize that a little bit with this movie. Okay, now let's talk about all the other great stuff in the movie. And we're going to start with the action scenes. Not a lot of action. As I said in my non-spoiler review, I thought the Statue of Liberty stuff was a dud action-wise. But the quality of the action scene, two action scenes that they do have is incredible. Like the bridge scene, wow. As I said, Alfred Molina didn't miss a step as Doc Ock. And that was just a perfect Doc Ock versus Spider-Man fight. It was funny. It was suspenseful and had a lot of New Yorkers in danger. I mean, when that car was thrown over the side and Spider-Man realized there was a family in it, that was incredible. And the stuff with the MIT college advisor, she did a great job, by the way. Talk about an actress making the most of her opportunity, of her screen time. She was just phenomenal. And my favorite line was when the Iron Spider suit deployed its legs and Otto was like, oh, it looks like we have some competition. I mean, Spider versus Octopus. It was great. I also, speaking of legs, I loved when Otto assimilated the Iron Spider tech, but that allowed Tom Holland's Peter Parker to control the arms. New device found. It was like syncing up a new Apple device. I just absolutely loved it. And again, Tony Stark doesn't get enough credit for not only how advanced his tech is, but how user-friendly it is. I mean, they were able to have a whole portable lab in Happy's apartment, which was like ridiculous, but you believed it, because that's how cool and talented Tony Stark was. All right. So I guess his shadow was a little there. He's like, I'm still here a little bit. I also thought the apartment building fight at Happy's was very well done. I mean, for just a moment, the movie, I think, really clicked. Like I'd say maybe the first hour is like very, very good. Really good. Like the Sinister Five, so lame we couldn't have Sinister Six. But it was working there for a moment. I did think it was funny when he brought everyone into the apartment and Happy was like, I looked at my door cam and are you having a party? Who's that mud guy? Who's that dust guy? That was great. And I thought another one of my favorite lines was when Jamie Foxx tells Otto, I liked you better before. Me too! I also liked him better before. I thought that was great. That was really, really great. And then when Green Goblin and Tom Holland's Peter Parker were punching each other through the floors from apartment to apartment, that was excellent. And just reminded you that Green Goblin is Peter Parker's #1 rogue. Otto totally jinxed it when he was like, are you excited to be normal, Norman? And, the evil part was like, what's that now? I guess he was asleep because didn't he see what they were working on? But anyway, yeah, don't jinx it. He jinxed it. And then all the other villains kind of factored in. So again, it seemed very much like a Spider-Man story versus the Sinister Five. Whatever. But it was close. It was so close. It was really cool. And it was still technically in Queens, in the new gentrified part of Queens. But it was cool. It was really great. I thought that was excellent. You had J. Jonah Jameson downstairs with his camera. I mean, just everything was working, clicking really nicely. And then the other thing I loved about this movie was Tom Holland's Peter Parker and Zendaya's MJ, who is confirmed as Michelle Jones Watson. MJ Watson. I'm so glad that they did that. I thought that was wonderful. And I don't feel they're over, by the way, as a couple. And Tom Holland's still making Peter Parker is making selfish decisions when it comes to MJ. He didn't learn that she would like to be consulted on these major life choices, including not saying, hey, let me tell you who I am. I think she would like to know, quite frankly. I think they might spend a movie apart as a couple. I think MJ will probably still be in the movie because she's just too great a character. Maybe at MIT she'll have her own science accident, right? But their love is too strong. I mean, clearly she's going to be like she'll see something on the news and she'll be like, I think I know that guy. I just feel like it's going to come back. It's too great. I mean, MJ and Peter never recovered in the comics, actually. But, after one more day. But I hope that they do here. Ned continues to be a total third wheel. And I even was made into a joke in this movie. Ned can never read the room. Also, I think he's such a bad friend to Peter. He always is making mistakes and he always, goes back on his word or doesn't do what he's supposed to or what he implied that he would do. It is so frustrating. We'll talk about his interrogation in a moment. But now that he can do magic, he ain't never going away. Darn it! But back to Peter and MJ, I loved how the movie highlighted what a great team they are and that MJ is an asset instead of a liability. I thought that was so wonderful. And Zendaya, really, as an actress, she was just so great the whole movie. But she really sold how hurt she was that Peter made the decision to erase her and everyone else's knowledge of him without consulting with her first. she just played that so well. Like, she was still nice about it. Every woman, or I mean, anyone in a relationship can relate to this. Like, you don't want to torpedo the whole relationship, but this is pretty bad. I thought that was great. Just great lines throughout all the Spider-Man Tom Holland scenes. From the police station, when they keep saying, don't say anything without a lawyer. And then that guy tricked Ned by saying, oh, MJ told me that you were really surprised when she told her that Peter Parker was Spider-Man. And then, of course, Ned totally fell for it. Happy hearing their late night call. It was so funny. He says, we get it. You both like each other. No new ground is being broken here, which was funny because it was also almost like a screenwriting note. So I thought it was, that's the kind of meta I particularly appreciate. To even MJ and Ned helping Peter go after Electro with the phone taped to his chest and having them on FaceTime. That was very clever for them to be able to help him that way. I mean, when you really love somebody, you want to be in the mix. You want to make sure you're there so that, and just in case there was something that maybe you would think of that they wouldn't, that you would be there to help them. And I thought that they really got that across. And I guess to some degree, that's the situation with Aunt May as well. I don't think that Marissa Tomei conveyed that as well. But that was just great stuff. That was just really, really good. Then the revealed identity stuff was also extremely interesting and I think showed the darker side of celebrity that isn't discussed very much, how valuable anonymity really is. The opening of this movie is absolutely incredible. Great energy, very high stakes, very fresh. Again, meta in a way that I really like. Very, almost a commentary on society today. I mean, it was just really firing on all cylinders. I thought that was incredible. But it makes me wonder why everyone was going crazy over Spider-Man's identity being revealed when all the Avengers' identities are known. They walk around doing stuff, right? I've seen them walk around doing stuff in other movies. I guess because of the Mysterio murder angle, and that maybe, I guess because it was a secret? It makes me wonder, is there a gated community for superheroes, right? Or like a Hollywood where there are so many of them, it's like a superhero industry town, right? You would think that would be New York City. So that was weird to me. And speaking of other heroes in New York City, it was so wonderful to see Charlie Cox's Matt Murdock again. Even if it was incredibly brief. Like, that was super brief. I mean, he caught the brick. That was cool. But you know what I thought was cooler? That he gave amazing legal advice. I mean, Charlie Cox did not miss a beat. I'm so excited to see more of him on She-Hulk and beyond as he enters the MCU more and more, working towards having his own show again. And you know what? That's a great note to end on, because I think what made that cameo so perfect was that he was exactly as I remembered him, as we all remembered him, which was important. I wish that was a note that someone had thought of Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield aren't responsible totally for their choices. That's something that everyone involved in the movie signed off on. And I wish that maybe they were just so happy they agreed to do it, they didn't want to bother them, but I wish that, they'd push them a little bit more to act. All right, so anyway, that's my spoiler review for Spider-Man No Way Home. More spoiler videos coming, including end credit scene breakdowns and a focus on the characters in the movie, because again, there's so much to discuss. All right, share your thoughts down below, subscribe today, and of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.